In today's video, I'm going to be comparing the finer points of teaching ESL in Korea, Vietnam, and Taiwan. If you're thinking about teaching in one of these places and you're not sure which one you want to choose, stay tuned, I have information to share. Hi, my name is Leah. Welcome to my channel. If you're interested in what life looks like living and working abroad, this channel's for you. In this video, I'm going to be talking about my experiences with language centers or cram schools and public schools. Before we get started, I'm first going to address a lot of common misconceptions about teaching ESL. You do not need years and years of experience. Experience is preferred, but it's not necessary. You do not need to be super young in your 20s or 30s to get started. I started my journey at 45 and I'm still here. Although it is important to note that ageism is a practice in certain countries. Contrary to popular belief, you do not need to commit to a full year abroad. It is more likely that you'll be offered more contracts if you have this flexibility, but there are shorter contracts for the late intake that ends at the same time of the year, and some countries even offer contracts that are 3, 6, or 9 months. You do not need to know the language of the country that you're interested in. I would suggest that you at least familiarize yourself with some survival phrases. As of right now, Tuesday, 8:43 in the morning, you do not need to be vaccinated in order to qualify for entry into Korea, Vietnam, or Taiwan. There's also no legal requirement for schools to enforce vaccinations, but that changes like every 5 minutes. Obviously, if you're vaccinated, there's less of an issue for you being eligible for opportunities to teach ESL abroad. But I would still say check the local requirements of the CDC for the government official statement of the country that you're interested in. And last, whatever your recruiter or school is telling you that you need for startup costs, double it. Across the board, the general qualifications in order to be eligible to teach in any one of these 3 countries are: you must be approved from one of these English-speaking countries: US, Canada, UK, Ireland, South Africa, Australia, and New Zealand. You must also have a passport from one of these designated countries. If your passport is expiring within 6 months, I would suggest that you renew it. You must have a bachelor's degree or diploma in any field. A graduating certificate does not count. Clear criminal record. So what about that time when I was 18, 19 years old and I did something stupid? Will that count against me if it shows on my record? Yes. What if I had a conviction that's like 20, 30 years old? Would that count against me? Yes. What if I had a conviction that was overturned or sealed? Will that count against me? If it shows up on your record, even if it says that it's sealed? Yes. At some point, you're going to need a health check. Now, this might be before you arrive into the country or after, but you should be prepared for one. You need to have a TOEFL certificate with at least 120 hours. The ability to commit to a year's contract is going to give you more options. Okay, so let's talk about cram schools, language centers. Cram schools are specialized schools that focus on specific educational purposes. Because they are a business, their requirements for qualification can vary since they're not set by government standards. For language centers or cram schools, their preference is for you to be from one of these designated English-speaking countries. Make sure that you have a passport that is less than 6 months from expiration. So a lot of times there are opportunities for people to work in language centers if you're not from these countries. However, if you're not, usually what happens is you receive a much lower hourly rate of pay. Language schools have a preference of you having a 4-year degree or diploma. However, they do offer more flexibility in that they will take an AA degree plus TOEFL certification training. Your TOEFL should be at least 120 hours of training. If you do not have a 4-year degree and you don't have teaching experience, you should consider signing up for the TOEFL course that offers a practicum with classroom practice. This will show experience coming out of the gate on your resume, and it also makes you a stronger candidate. Your criminal background check is preferred to be squeaky clean, of course. Nonviolent juvenile offenses have a lot more leniency when it comes to employment in language centers. Be sure that if they ask you what happened with your side of the story, that you are finding a way to show it at least in the most positive light. Maybe you got a DWI when you were younger, but you did community service and the case is now sealed. That's something that shows that you've taken responsibility and accountability for what you have done, and it also sets you in a more positive positive light. Wages and working hours. In Korea, public school teachers can make up to 2,000 USD per month. In Vietnam, public school teachers can make up to 1,500 USD per month. And in Taiwan, most public school teachers can make up to 2,000 USD per month. All of these are beginning salaries before taxes, working a 40-hour week. Your school schedule will most likely be Monday through Friday, daytime hours with Saturday and Sunday off. Your holidays and your time off will follow a public school calendar. Contracts are usually for 1 year and they begin in the fall and end in the summer. Language schools get to set their own rates that they pay their employees. The times that you work, the hourly rate that you receive is going to vary by school. But in my experience, here are the typical wages and working hours in each country. In Korea, there is an average pay of about 2,000 USD per month, working about 30 hours per week. In Vietnam, the average pay is about 2,000 USD per month, working between 15 to 25 hours a week. I have not worked in a language center in Taiwan, but the research that I have seen shows that they are a little bit different. Korea and Vietnam have a contracted rate of pay monthly. Taiwan pays hourly. The average going rate is between $20 and $25 an hour. So if you're wanting to make that 2,000 USD per month, you are working a different set of hours than being contracted in Vietnam and in Korea. Your schedule is most likely going to be evening hours between 5 and 10 p.m. and it's most likely that you're going to be working weekend hours. Now the weekend hours usually start from morning until night. It's the opportunity that the business has to make the most amount of money, so that's when most of their classes are going to be offered. And the potential for overtime is always there as long as business is booming. Language schools make money by selling an individualized curriculum. In public schools, you're going to be responsible for creating your own lessons. You will have planning hours that will be assigned to you during your 40-hour week. You're going to be creating curriculum that either parallels what the students are learning in the book, or you're going to partner with your co-teacher to come up with your own unique curriculum. Easiest ways to make extra money. If you are working at a public school during daytime hours, you can take a second job either working at a language center in the evening, you could tutor, or you could work online. If you are working at a language center in the evening hours, there's always substitute jobs that are open during the day, and you can also tutor and you can also work online. Your experiences, of course, are going to vary on so many different things. So the information that I'm giving you about the students are strictly from my perspective and my opinion only. Across the board, I think that all three countries have a really strong sense of filial duty. They lead incredibly busy lives, and there is a strong sense, of course, of the parents pushing their children to learn English. I feel that my students that I taught in Korea were by far the most stressed. They are in a learning environment from what I feel like is sun up to sundown. Their day starts early in the morning and they go to school, and then after that it's just back to back to back to back to back to back classes. As their ESL teacher, I try to make their classes as inviting and stress-free as I possibly can. So my students were very structured and highly organized on a level that I have never seen before. I would have to pay someone to organize and run my life at the efficiency that they did during school. It was amazing. In Vietnam, I taught in a language center for 3 years. Personally found that my Vietnamese students had the most sense of curiosity. There were tons of discussions about what students wanted to see from Vietnam and their country's role in the world. And the cool thing about it is that I am still in touch with a lot of them to this day. In Taiwan, I have taught in the public school system for about 2.5 years. My students in Taiwan are definitely the most respectful and polite students that I have ever taught in my 7 years abroad. I find the students in Taiwan to be extremely outgoing and extremely engaging. Expat quality of life. The expat quality of life are overall factors that affect how you are perceiving the country, the safety, transportation, the weather, convenience. In Korea, there is a huge expat community. There are numerous meetings, gatherings, language exchanges. This is where you can make a ton of friends, and there's also opportunities for you to meet a lot of people on the military bases. I don't feel that Koreans actually make lifelong friendships with foreigners. I think that you will be considered more an acquaintance. The definition and qualification of friendships in Korea differ than what we expect coming in as a Westerner. Their true friendships are things that are based on things like going to the same school together, did they grow up together, and being the same age and being from the same country. It's not a bond that's created over experiences like how we do it in the West. That's not to say that you will not have a great time while you were there. I met and hung out with some of the coolest people that I have ever met, but I would also say do not be offended if people do not keep in touch with you after you leave. In Vietnam, your largest expat communities are going to be in the larger cities like Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh. Unlike Korea, where you are looking for expat communities online, you can literally step out your door in Vietnam and there are just expats everywhere. You won't have a problem finding someone to make a connection with. As far as friendships with Vietnamese people, I personally have found that Vietnamese are extremely outgoing. They will make friends in a heartbeat. I cannot tell you how many functions we have been invited to, how many weddings we have attended, how many dinners we have attended, literally of people that we don't know that have just invited us into their home as strangers because that's what they do. And when you leave Vietnam, you should expect to keep in touch with several friends that you've made during the process. In Taiwan, I have found that the biggest expat communities are in the larger cities up north, like Taipei. You're gonna find that there are a lot of communities that come together based on interest and hobbies and not necessarily connecting with people for the sake of connecting with people. So maybe you like to do stand-up paddling, maybe you like hiking. This would be the place where you would find those communities. I don't find very many expat communities, either for people or for hobbies, further down in the south where I live. And I'm not sure if that just means that I'm not looking on the right places or having the right contacts, but there's definitely a lot more going on up north than down south. And it's not to say there's nothing going on down south, I just haven't seen it. As far as making true, meaningful friendships, I think that that is hit or miss. I think that Taiwan people are very reserved and they are selective with who they share their energy with. I think it is a mixture of this being a really quiet society and we as Westerners are really loud and outgoing, and that can be a bit of a turnoff. And there's also the qualifications of what makes a friend, and I think it's similar to Korea. Did they grow up together? Did they go to the same school together? Are they the same age? The only exception that I have seen to this is when people start dating. When people start dating, there's a different side of Taiwanese people that I see that I don't necessarily think are normal behaviors that's associated with the culture, that I've observed in the culture. How about that? When it comes to safety, I can definitely say that I felt incredibly safe in Korea, safe as a foreigner and safe as a woman. There are cameras everywhere, and I don't know if that compels people to practice honest behavior. I want to say they don't, that they're naturally just this honest society, but I never felt threatened. I felt safe walking at night. I felt safe being alone and exploring the island alone. I felt safe taking the transportation. I didn't have any bad experiences, and it is not a place where I think that you need to have a buddy or someone that you depend on to go with you places. Like the markets were safe, the public transportation was safe. It was a really good experience. Vietnam and safety, I don't think that Vietnam is necessarily an unsafe country if you are an experienced traveler and you know what to look out for. If this is your first time considering going abroad, Vietnam is going to require you to really become aware of your environment, aware of your belongings, aware of where you are when you're going someplace. If you are fearful of being alone in an environment that you're not familiar with and you're walking home at night, if it shows on your body, you are going to be a target. It is better to have resting bitch face in Vietnam or someone that you can depend on, that you can walk with if you have to walk at night. But I would definitely say don't flash your valuables. Keep things that you value either not on your really not on your person, somewhere safe, but it's not this raging, rampant, horrible society, but you definitely need to be on the lookout for yourself. Taiwan, I think, has spoiled us so much much with how safe and secure that we feel here. I actually have to untrain myself when I go home to America because of the comfort and the security and the safety that I feel here. I feel safe as a woman. I feel safe as an expat. There are cameras here that are supposed to be monitoring the streets, but I don't think that all of them work. And I think that this is just a society that is filled with really honorable people. It's not to say that everybody here is honorable, but it is enough to say that I don't feel threatened. Oh my gosh, you speak so well of all of these countries. Will I be experiencing racism? And the answer is yes, we're going to experience racism wherever we go because of the lack of opportunity to interact with other people, to break the stereotypes, the way that the media portrays us, and just the ideal of what beauty is in general in certain countries. So in Korea, I had lots of stares, lots of picture taking, lots of smiles too. So I guess not like an overall bad thing, but did I experience my own version of racism? Yes. Now, I did teach at a private language academy, again, which is a business. And I can say for the staff that I worked with, they were extremely inviting. They introduced me to the culture. They showed me certain ceremonies and things that would help me embrace living in Korea and to learn more about the Korean people. But when they operated as a business, there was definitely racism experience. And the thing about it is, who I worked with, they were so disconnected from their behavior that their reasoning was, I think they actually thought that they were doing me a favor and protecting me. So in my school, we often did open houses, and we went to the public schools for recruitment. And when we had open houses, I was literally asked to stay in the back classroom and not come out. And that is because they didn't want to possibly lose the business of signing up new students by letting the parents have an opinion that there was a black teacher at the school. In the recruiting efforts that we did in public schools, my counterpart was able to go in and hand out flyers and engage with the children, but I was asked to stay in the parking lot and serve coffee. Now that might have been a one-off incident. Maybe it was just a day where they thought that a whole bunch of parents were drinking coffee. No, this was absolutely consistent. By the way, there was a happy ending to this story, which you can check out at this video here, but you do need to know that that was practiced. So in Vietnam, did you experience racism? Yes. The racism in Vietnam was just a little bit higher on a different level. So you have the stares, you have the pointing, and you have the people taking pictures. But I found in Vietnam that my skin and the body that I'm in elicited more looks of literal disgust. Learning that it's not an unsafe space, but there is definitely practice discrimination. Like there's places that we were turned away from for engaging in business. I was actually denied boarding a public bus to go somewhere because they didn't want my kind on their bus. Vietnam is also the first place where I experienced people not respecting personal space. I had a lot of unwanted touching, either to see if my skin wore off or to see if my skin color wore off. I am a full figure person, so a lot of touching in very inappropriate places all the time by old men and people who were curious without asking consent, as if I would give it. I've been spit on in Vietnam, and in my school there was a lot of racism too. I'm not going to say a lot. I'm going to take that back. There was a lot of ignorance in my school, and I used a lot of my time to break down the stereotypes of what people assumed black people were, and ended up having a really, really good relationship with my school. My experiences with Vietnam have definitely left an impression upon me. I'm just gonna say that. All right, so now I live in Taiwan. Does Taiwan have racism? Yes, you're gonna experience racism wherever you go. The thing about Taiwan is because this is a non-confrontational country, their racism is covert, it's underlying. It's not in your face as it is in Vietnam or in Korea. And the way that racism is experienced, or the way that I have experienced it here, is mostly through relays of the children. Hey teacher, my mom wanted me to let you know she doesn't like your hair, or the fact that half my head is shaved is she doesn't like your shaved hair. What is the purpose of you telling me that? Like, why are you telling me that? Also, Taiwan, I have to say to anybody who is taking pictures of everywhere that I have been and everywhere that I have lived in my experience, which is a lot of places, this is the worst country in taking covert pictures. You guys are horrible with thinking that you're sneaking pictures of people and we don't know. I have 7 years of enhanced spidey senses of knowing when people are taking my picture and think that I don't know. Might I make a suggestion? If you ask to take a picture, it is more likely that it will be yes, that you get to tell a story about it and that you get to have an exchange, or not. You may not get to have an exchange because you don't want to speak with me or you don't want to have a conversation with me. But simply, can I take a picture will come across much better than the numerous people that I have caught taking my picture. I don't know. You either need to get training to get better or just not do it at all. I say that with love, but I also say that to say, please stop doing that. The environment. Korea has 4 seasons. They are wonderful. I have come to appreciate 4 seasons living in a country that is so incredibly hot. I do have to say that Korea does have what are called yellow days, and this is when there is an abnormal amount of pollution in the air. And because of my sensitivity to it, I actually developed asthma living in Korea. But it didn't change the fact that I really love the country. I do appreciate that there are 4 seasons. If you decide that you want to teach in Korea, you should bring clothes and dress accordingly. Vietnam is super hot, but not to the point of where it's not tolerable. You can expect 4 seasons, but the worst season is monsoon season. When they talk about torrential and heavy rain, that is no joke. And the fact that it is normal means that if you are riding a motorcycle, you are expected to ride into work during monsoon season. The air quality in Vietnam for me was really poor, and it's because they burn a lot of their trash and they burn a lot of plastic. I would strongly suggest that you get a mask, and not the regular surgical mask that you have seen being brought out since the pandemic, but more of a mask like this that actually has filters that filter out the particulates and the particles to make sure that you are not being triggered and that you're breathing the cleanest air possible. Taiwan has 3 seasons. One is a rainy season. The second season is hot, and then the third season is hotter. I have never lived in a place that is so hot in my life. Bring bathing suits, be prepared to walk around your house naked. It's hot on a whole nother level. The transportation system in Korea is very easy to navigate, and it is extremely efficient. So most of my transportation was done either by taxi or by bus or by train. For the taxis, there are apps that you can download that are in English, incredibly easy to use. They are connected with a map system that will pick you up. You will often have a rough estimate of what your taxi is going to be before you take it. And then there are the buses and the train systems. I find that Korea is highly efficient with their transportation. So you can buy a bus card or a train card in any convenience store. There are buses that take you all over the island that can be express buses or local buses. The train system is the same way. They start at 5 in the morning and I think they run until 11:30 at night. So you have a huge amount of time to choose where you want to travel to and from. In Vietnam, if you are wanting to explore the entire country, the easiest way to do that is going to be by motorbike. That's going to be the fastest, most efficient transportation. They do have buses and they do have trains. I do love the fact that the trains allow you to load your motorbike, but I did not find any apps that talked about the train system or the bus system. However, the internet is a great resource for finding the best mode of transportation if you're wanting to go to and from somewhere. The other thing about the buses is that the fare for the bus is usually paid for while you're on the bus. So once you get on the bus, you tell the driver where you want to go and you pay a fare. If you are a foreigner, you should expect your ticket to cost more than the locals. By how much? Depends on the ticket taker. Sometimes they pocket your money and sometimes they just charge you a higher fare, but you should be prepared for that. If you use a travel agent to take a train somewhere, or again, you can go on a local website. They're really easy to navigate to catch a train. You can pay for it on the website or you can pay for it at the train station. The trains usually do run on time. They are very efficient and they're comfortable. So Taiwan also has a very effective train and bus system and taxi system that are similar to Korea. Their trains start at 5 in the morning and the last one runs at 10:30, I think. At least from Tainan Station getting back, they may be later, but I doubt it. The app to find out about the trains and the buses translate very easily into English. The apps also show the cost, the times that they are arriving, and if there's any delays. You can also purchase your tickets on the app, or you can purchase your tickets at the train station. Now, the one thing that I am going to toot my horn about for Taiwan is their flipping high-speed rail system. I am such a fangirl of the high-speed rail, and I know it's a bit more expensive, but when do you get to travel on a train that goes 181 miles per hour? You don't. You can check out this video to see me fangirling over it. The only negative thing that I see about the transportation system in Taiwan is if you live in the country like I do. There are buses that come out here that will connect you to the larger cities, but whereas I know that I can catch a train to Tainan every 20 minutes, the buses out here come every 50 to 70 minutes. So you really need to plan your time if you're wanting to use a bus. Other than that, you can also ride a motorcycle if you plan on living out in the country, but Taiwan has a very highly efficient system that will get you around the country. Okay, so those are some of the things that I have loved and hated about each individual country that I've lived in. I'm curious, based off of the information, number one, did any of this help you at all? And which country would you choose based off of the information that I gave you? Leave a comment in the box below. The borders are open now in Taiwan, and if you are interested in knowing in detail what you need in order to qualify to be an English teacher, you can check out this video.